"Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you," she joked, until the single dad veteran started the engine. The story begins on a windswept field outside a small town, where a worn-out helicopter sits gleaming under the late afternoon sun. The camera pans in on Jake Miller, a former Army pilot with a rugged face, calloused hands, and eyes that hold 1,000 untold stories. He's there not to impress anyone, not to chase glory, but to rebuild the life he lost when the war took away everything that mattered most. And as you're watching, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what happens next might just remind you that second chances are real, and love sometimes begins when you least expect it. Jake had been living quietly with his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago. He worked odd mechanic jobs, stayed out of people's way, and spoke more to machines than to people. His daughter was his whole world, bright, curious, with her mother's smile and her father's courage. But Jake carried a shadow. The sound of helicopter blades still haunted him at night, bringing back the smell of dust and diesel, and the screams he couldn't forget. That's when Claire Benson entered his world, a local journalist and thrill-seeker who hosted a small YouTube travel and challenge channel. She was confident, witty, and full of light, the kind of person who could make anyone feel alive again. One day, while filming at the old airfield, she met Jake, who was fixing the decaying helicopter that had been sitting there for years. "Ever think about getting this thing off the ground again?" she teased, holding her camera toward him. Jake just smirked. "She's seen better days. I bet you couldn't even get her to hover," Claire said, grinning. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Wanna make it interesting?" Claire laughed. "Sure. Fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you." The camera caught her words, the laughter that followed, and Jake's quiet smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. It was a joke, just playful banter for her video, but something in that moment stuck with both of them. Over the next few weeks, Claire kept coming back to the airfield. At first, it was for the story, she told herself. The veteran and his rusty helicopter, a perfect local feature. But soon, it became something else. She watched how patient Jake was with Emma, how he never spoke about himself but always asked about her dreams. She saw the way he touched the helicopter with reverence, as though it were a wounded friend. And Jake, despite the walls he'd built, found himself looking forward to her visits. Claire brought laughter into places where silence used to live. She'd bring sandwiches, jokes, and even a toy drone for Emma. And little by little, Jake started to let himself feel again. But just as things began to change, a letter arrived. The local airfield was being sold to developers. The helicopter would be scrapped. Jake's quiet refuge, the place he'd spent years trying to fix both metal and memories, was about to be torn down. That night, Jake sat with Emma by the window. "Daddy," she said softly, "can't you fly it? Just once. For Mommy." Her words hit him like a bolt of lightning. That helicopter wasn't just a machine, it was everything he'd been afraid to face. The noise, the pain, the guilt. But maybe it could also be his way out. His way forward. The next morning, Claire showed up with her camera again, only to find Jake already at the controls. The air smelled like gasoline and hope. "What are you doing?" she called out, half laughing, half scared. Jake looked at her, his hand steady on the throttle. "You said if I fly it, you'll marry me." Claire froze, the camera shaking slightly in her hand. "Jake, I was joking." But the roar of the engine cut her off. The blades began to turn, slow at first, then faster and faster until the ground beneath them trembled. Dust swirled in the air. Emma stood nearby, eyes wide with wonder. And then, it lifted. The old helicopter rose off the ground, wobbly but alive, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again. Claire's laughter turned into tears as she watched Jake soar above the field, the wind catching his hair, the sun blazing behind him. It wasn't just a flight, it was freedom. When he landed, the silence that followed felt sacred. Claire ran to him, her camera forgotten. He stepped out, face streaked with sweat and oil, and looked at her with that quiet smile again. "I told you I could fly it," he said. Claire's voice trembled. "You did more than that." The next scene fades to them sitting together at sunset. Emma asleep on Jake's lap, Claire resting her head on his shoulder. The helicopter behind them, finally at peace. "Do you still want to marry me?" Jake asked softly. Claire smiled through her tears. "You already stole my heart the moment you lifted off." The camera pulls back, the orange sky washing everything in gold. The screen fades to black with words that linger. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't flying again, it's letting your heart take off. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories that remind us love and courage can be reborn, even from the wreckage of the past. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting to fly again, just like Jake did. NPLZ, give me your comments.